Okay, I'm doing this stream now. I am a professional streamer, as you can see. Oh, oh boy. I have to mute this. Goodness. Okay, that's fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. Okay. Let's continue on building Rafter. Rafter is this fun little serverless deployment platform I'm working on. It's open source. It is powered by Google Cloud. Here's what it looks like. Pretty fun. Specifically, I'm building this here commands center. So inside an environment, you can run any number of commands. You can imagine you might want to run, if you're building a Laravel application, an artisan command, or if you are building a, let's open up the chat too, just in case I can toggle back to it. Nothing. Great. You can imagine if you're using Rails, you might want to run a Rails command. WordPress, there's the WP command line tool. It's not possible to jump in and run a command directly in Google Cloud Run because it is running inside these containers. They're ephemeral, meaning they're disposable, and you can't rely on having like an SSH connection like you would normally be able to have if you were building or you were using like a virtual private server. So we've got the UI built. We can run commands now. I can run a command like help, help, and then click run and text. If I hop in here to my Google Cloud console, and go to after demo project, to Cloud Run. I have a Laravel example production and Laravel example production worker. This is the request. The request will go to this worker, which is not public, so it has to be authenticated, and that worker will handle whatever command we want to run. So I'm journaling this right now on blog.rafter.app if you want to follow along. The next step is to call the worker service. I'm going to hop into my command model. So this is the actual command that's being run. And we want to fire up a function along the lines of let's see, so we already have dispatch, right? This is going to dispatch a job, which is going to asynchronously run the command and call the worker service, but it'd be nice if that job was just kind of a simple wrapper and it called another method back on this model so that we can have that all encapsulated in one place. So inside this model, let's create another method called call run command on worker. Sound good? In this method, we want to essentially just call out to the endpoint. So we have this command available as a string. We're going to want to send that along in some sort of payload. So command will equal command. And this needs to go to an endpoint, and so the endpoint is going to be this environment. We don't have the environment defined yet as a relation in here, so let's go ahead and do that up here. Environment, this return this belongs to an environment, because that's a column inside the commands migration here, environment ID. So I'm going to say this environment worker URL. I think that's what it is. Gosh. If we open up the environment model, we search for set worker URL. Yeah, it's just this worker URL equals URL. So, great. So that's going to be the, let's call this the worker URL. And so we need to call this and get the response. So if I try to do, for example, Laravel has an HTTP helper now in Laravel 7. I'm going to say post. The URL is worker URL, and the data I'm passing along is this. The response is going to be here. And I do want it to throw any exceptions that I get. We're definitely going to get an exception. Eventually, we're going to want to update the output to be the response body, I think. Yeah, just the string. And then we're also going to want to mark, actually, I already have a mark finished with the allowing you to send in an output, and it will update both the status and the output at the same time. So let's just do that instead. So mark finished, and then the output is just going to be response body. And so if this throws an exception, let's catch it. And then let's mark it as failed with the exception message. So what I'm going to try to do here is actually run this in the command line first. Instead of having to deal with asynchronous jobs, it's kind of nice to be able to run something that we have complete access to. So let's pop open. How do I forget all the keyboard shortcuts. Nope. There we go. Let's open up PHP Artisan Tinker, and let's find the most recent command that I ran. And let's try just firing off this method that we created, run command on worker. Okay, null, let's just see what the value is here. Failed, HTTP request return status 403. That totally makes sense, right? Because, like I said, this is completely requiring authentication. You can't send requests to this worker without having some sort of bearer token in a header. So moving forward, let's add that token. Now, thankfully, Google has documentation for this exact thing about authenticating service to service inside Cloud Run. If you're using Cloud Tasks or PubSub, that happens automatically because Google knows how to sign their requests. But we are not one of those requests. We're running this. This will be running in Cloud Run. Rafter is hosted by Rafter in Cloud Run, but not within the user's own service. So we need to use the service account key JSON that the user has provided for a given Google account to send the request. And that requires a little bit more work. You have to self-sign a service account JOT with target audience set to the URL of the receiving service. So that would be the URL of the Cloud Run worker. You'll want to exchange that self-signed JOT for a Google signed ID token. Again, odd claim set to the above URL, and then include the ID token in the bearer token header. There is an example of using the PHP client for this, which is really nice. This works really well. The only problem here is, like I said, I'm going to be running Rafter in my own Google Cloud account. It's going to try to load the application credentials for my own account and not the user's stack. And so I need to inject the user's service account credentials instead of the default credentials. So we're going to slightly modify how we do this. So first, I'm just going to ping. Gosh, what is it? Okay. So what it's really doing is it's calling self get ID token credentials, and then it's returning a new auth token middleware. Get ID token credentials is accepting a target audience and then a bunch of other kind of cache because I need to use the user's service account key. But if we dig in a little bit closer, we'll see new service account credentials. This is a helper method. it's calling using the JSON key as the second argument, null, and then the target audience that goes through here. So I'm going to just yank this line through to my command. Whoops. Let's auto import this. The JSON key is going to be, now this is going to take a little bit of traversal. I have to go to this environment. Gosh, the environment is then connected to a project, which then has a Google project, which then has a service account. So just reviewing, let's just pull that out as a variable to make it a little bit cleaner. JSON key is going to be this. I'm going to pass that in as a second argument, and then the target audience is just going to be worker URL. Cool. So now we've got a service account credentials, and we can go back up to where it creates the middleware and use new auth token middleware. Auto import that. I'm not going to pass it an HTTP handler. And so that middleware, lovely. This has to be inserted somewhere in the handler stack for Guzzle. This is something that I want to use Laravel's HTTP facade for, but unfortunately I tried before and it doesn't quite work. It doesn't pass the middleware as needed to fire properly, so we actually end up having to use Guzzle here. So I'm going to hop back in and kind of copy the way this is used. And let's try this. Handler stack, I guess, is a Guzzler thing, creating a stack, pushing the middleware onto it, and then getting the Guzzle client imported. Auth, Google Auth has to be passed in order for the middleware to kick in, so that's fine. And then we want to make the request. Unfortunately, this needs to be a post request. And the URL, again, is the worker URL. The options, gosh, what are post options? Lovely. I need to send a JSON formatted payload. Does it need to be JSON? Maybe it doesn't. This is frustrating. I can't jump to just post in here. Okay. Because it would be really nice to just do this, right? But I don't know that this is going to actually work. I assume I have to send some sort of body like this. Let's pull up the Guzzle docs. Okay, post. Okay, that's just a new request, headers body. I just want to see a simple, like, probably the 90% common use case here, Guzzle. I don't want to use requests, I just want to use post. Here we go. Form params. Sending form files. Request options. Let's see if there's a body. Yeah. Okay. So that might work. Cool. And I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna get a response back. So let's wrap this up inside here. And the response is really messy. I have to do the actual output is going to be response get body get contents. Let's try that. I'm going to do the latest command, and then I'm just going to try running it because there's nothing preventing me from rerunning it, I guess. Let's print it out. Passing body request as an array to send a post request has been deprecated. Use form params request object. Okay. So, form params, I guess. Try it again. .405 method not allowed. Fascinating. Oh, yeah. And so I'm just trying, I need to tack on the endpoint for Rafter. So, gosh, that's right. So the worker URL is actually going to be /Rafter /command/run. And that comes from the Rafter core integration, which I've written about before, but let's just try that again. Hey, look at that, we got some output. And so if I go back to my UI and hit refresh, cool, awesome. This is great. So I ran it 10 seconds ago. It took 16 minutes to complete, which makes sense because it took me that long to get working correctly, but the status is correct. It shows the output. Looks like I need to format the output to respect line breaks, so I wonder if the command output, I use a pre-tag, maybe? Sweet. Of course, that needs to be. Wow, this is awesome. Cool. All right, feels pretty good. Made some good progress there. With that, I'm going to just hop off because my son just woke up and I have to continue being a dad now. But it was great streaming with you. Hopefully I'll jump on and do more streams soon.